This week's video is pretty much about Werribee. It's about Werribee history. It's about preserving Werribee history, because Werribee in its own right has got a massive, rich heritage of the Chirnside family, along with the Carter family with the Chook farms, and so much more. We've got a very big RAF history. Today I'm going to do a video of the Werribee Historical Society Museum here at the Old Shire offices in Watton Street in Werribee. Let's get into it. Well, I've made my way into the Historical Society Museum, and you can see here right from the start of Shire of Werribee, probably come off the old Civic Centre before it became City of Wyndham. The sad part about my story is the society, this museum, were given 3 months' notice by Wyndham City Council to get out of this building. Now, this building is the Old Shire offices, and the society's been going for, I believe, 36 years. And they've acquired and accumulated a huge amount of history of our local area, and we should treasure this. The fact that the Werribee Wyndham Council have treated the society with such contempt is disgusting. The good news is, we'll go into that later in the video, but there is some good news to this. The museum is actually closed, so Lisa has allowed me to come in here and document on film some of the things that are in here, some of our history. I think it's important to preserve this. I'm third generation Werribee. My great-grandfather was one of the first guys in the RAF. He was an aerial photographer. He got an MBE from the King, which was the Queen's father. And my other grandfather, who was Gilbert Hosking, he managed the old cinema in Station Street. He was the local electrician. He was the local fire captain or lieutenant. He was in the fire brigade. They lived on the main street where Bow Repairs used to be. It's a restaurant now. But that's where my mum grew up, in the main street of this town. My mum was an usher at the old cinema with her dad. So the Hosking family's been around forever. So I've got a huge interest in what happens in our community. This is really important to preserve. I come here regularly. Someone on a post on Facebook recently said, "Oh, when was the last time you went to a museum? Why would you be fighting for the museum?" I came here regularly. I've had friends who have always worked here, Gordon Hope and lots of others, and Lisa. I've been here plenty of times. As you walk in, there's a visitor book here. Lots of amazing comments in there, which is good. And the first thing you see on the right-hand side here is a montage of local Werribee buildings. You'll see there the Presbyterian Church in the centre there, the manor, which burnt down when I was about 2 or 3 years old. The top one there is over at the Catholic Church. Of course, we all know the Chirnside Mansion, which is now Werribee Park. I think that might be the Ison home, but I'm not 100% sure. Happy to be corrected on that one. The Shire offices, which I'm sitting in at the moment, or standing in at the moment. One of the old pubs walls, I think that might be the Werribee, I think. Obviously long before my time. Presbyterian Church, I mentioned that. People might recognise that. It's actually now McDonald's. Sadly, they never preserved this building. Very sad. All right, so we'll get into the actual museum now. There's a lot of stuff in here that's actually been built. You can see in the middle here, they've got like an old-fashioned house with the old-fashioned veranda. A couple of old phones here. And then you have a look in here, and they've got like a big cabinet, and with a lot of history. Listerine toothpaste. I don't think we see that anymore. We have Listerine mouthwashes, but not Listerine toothpaste. And they've got a bit of that sort of stuff there. Down the bottom here, there's a couple more pictures of the manor, which is on pretty much Watermella Drive, up along the river there. Lots of cool stuff. So this is going to be a logistical nightmare for this group to actually pack this up. I'm just disgusted in our council. They have got a GoFundMe running to try and raise some funds to help move this, because as you can see, they've got big glass cases and lots of stuff to pack. and it's going to be a big job, and the fact they've only got 3 months to move out is just pathetic. So we'll move around. The old Methodist church in Synod Street. I've been here many times, and I still find things here to look at, because my childhood's always been around here. I'm pretty sure that's the gatekeeper's house out at Werribee Park at Churnside Mansion. Got some old washing machines here. More buildings in the background there. There are a lot of photos of the manor here, which is really, really good. Some of these I've not actually seen. I know my grandfather, William Ryan, the one I mentioned a few minutes ago, who was in the RAF, he was the first aerial photographer, and I've got lots and lots of photos of Werribee back in the 20s, aerial photography. And I remember as a young fella, the people who were doing Werribee Park Mansion, they wanted to get all the original photos, aerial photography photos of the mansion and all the gardens. I still have those photos. There's some clothing of the day. More pictures here of our past, agricultural past. Of course, the Churnsides were all agricultural. Who remembers VR, Victorian Railways, and the trains coming through Werribee long before we had electric trains? They're the old VR uniforms. Wow, there's lots of nice stuff here. It's a shame, it is such a shame that our council treat this place with such contempt. Very disappointing. Sorry I rave on about it, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on that's just not right. With the old desk, I remember as a kid at Glendevon Primary School, we had a desk like that. And in the early days, we had inkwells, went in there, and we had to write with nib pens and that sort of thing. It's an old typewriter. In here, we've got a few old different radios and some trophies. No doubt they'll be local trophies. Taylor and Preston Cup. Old books. Werribee Uniting Church, which is just across the road. I'll go in here. Wow, look at the old saws. Check that out. Who remembers the Werribee banner? That was our regular newspaper growing up, and it was local. It was really local. Everything about Werribee you'd find in the banner, from adverts to the people, recognition of people in the community. It all pretty much came from the Werribee banner back then. God, the old dairy, look at that. And I remember growing up, and I used to stay at my nana's house over on Bland Road, and I'd stay in the front room, and I remember the horse and cart delivering milk, showing my age a little bit. Pretty cool. It's an old map. I'm going a little bit quiet because I'm trying to let everything sink in. So there's an enlarger projector there, which they probably used out on the Point Cook RAF base in the old cinema. It's the Werribee Hotel. It's changed and evolved. It's now the park. Down on the corner where the post office is. They've got sort of then and now sort of photos. Like I pointed out before, the building there, it's now Macca's. Pathetic. Fisher's Garage. And Werribee again in another era. You know, our first department store was Denny's across the road from where we are right now on the corner there, and now there's real estate and kebab shops and all sorts of stuff in there. But once upon a time that was a department store called Denny's. And I remember lots of businesses in our main street over the years. So the Carters, doesn't seem to be a lot of history about the Carters, but the Carters had the biggest chook farm in the southern hemisphere, and it was here in Werribee. There's a lot of streets over in the, I'd call it Soldiers Reserve area there, which were all ex-Carter Carter houses or Carter worker houses. And I remember, I think it was Rolly Carter was a friend of my dad's, and there's 3 mansions from the Carter brothers. One's up in Russell Street there. That's the one that my dad was friends with. And I was just looking here, this one here, which is now, I think, Villa Franca. So it's a nursing home now, but that's one of the mansions. And the other one's down in Senate Street, which is now the Salvation Army. It's the Bridge Hotel there. That's evolved and changed now too. It's over at the racecourse. I mentioned Denny's just a moment ago. I remember going there with Mum when I was a little boy. The old Werribee pool. I learned to swim in the Werribee pool. And the Werribee Cinema, which I've got a big history with my grandfather being the manager there for many years. My mum worked there as well. And it's had different iterations as I was growing up. And Station Street's a great little hub, and I hear that our beautiful council looking at closing that up, and I feel sorry for the businesses in that area because it's really great just to be able to pop in and grab Baker's Delight or go to Station Street Meats or just, you know, go to the different shops when you need to pop in and pop out. Oh, Stilton Shoes. So Stilton Shoes is now where KFC is. And KFC actually, the first iteration was Ollie's Trolley. And on that same location, KFC came later, but that building was put up by the Pateris brothers, and it was Ollie's Trolley. And as a 16, 17-year-old, that was my first job at Ollie's Trolley as a chicken cook. And I'm still friends with Tommy and Chris, they're good blokes. So you can see here, lots of old photos of Werribee. I love it. See, Thompson Brothers, this is by the railway lines from memory, and this ended up being Powell's. Tom Powell ended up having Powell's Hardware, and he built the first iteration of the big building that Bunnings is now in, that Costas eventually took over, and the building over here on the far right hand side was actually the new shop that Tom Powell built, and now it's the timber store. But when they moved from the small shop, Tom Powell built the bigger hardware shop, and then after Costas, Bunnings obviously took it over. This is not far from my house, and the Powell family lived at the end of my street, so I hung out with the boys a fair bit when I was growing up. I'm loving this. The old Church of England, made famous by Blue Heelers. Blue Heelers were always filming there. My mum had a funeral there when she passed away. When I was a kid, my mum was a devout Anglican, and we would always be going to that church growing up. The tennis courts down at Chirnside Park, and we've had a look at a couple of those. Denny's, what else we've got here? I think we've looked at most of those. So the Werribee Racecourse, there used to be another grandstand at the end, and I remember the really big fire when that grandstand burnt down, and I was in the Werribee Angling Club as a kid, and I remember, I can't remember, I think the guy's name I was travelling with was Joe Hardy, was an ex-policeman or a policeman at the time, and we're coming back from a fishing trip, coming up Geelong Road, and we could see the flames and the fire coming from the grandstand getting burnt down at Werribee Racecourse. Long gone memory. The old channel which runs along Tarneit Road, where I grew up, I lived off Tarneit Road, and we used to swim here. My dad used to go down and catch eels. It was a really big part of our growing up. This one here is really close to my heart because after it was Squires, it was Ted Alabakis, and he ran the petrol station. Now I live really close to this. There was a shop across the road which was also Squires in the early days, and it was a corner store and little supermarket. Now the supermarket closed up by the time I was at an age to go to that shop, but that was my corner shop growing up. After Squires it was the Dartnells. After the Dartnells it was the Simpsons. So yeah, it had lots of owners, the little shop. Now I remember here on this driveway here, there was a tap over here, and as a kid we would, on the Sunday when the petrol station was closed, we'd turn the tap on and make all the concrete wet, and we'd get our bikes and we'd skid around the pumps. The petrol station, it's still there. It's now I think an Indian takeaway or something, but it's still there. But I have really, really strong memories of those days, and when you needed something done, you'd run around and see Ted and go, "Dad asked for this," or "Dad asked for that," and Ted was always obliging. Pretty cool memories. Where you enter in now, across the road from the Commercial Hotel and KFC, the taller building there is the old State Bank, and there's a public toilet there. Public toilets are still there, but it's a double entrance now and car park. So I think we all know that in Watton Street. On the corner there of Sinnott Street and Duncans Road, it's now a bottle shop, but along its day, Red Drops was the first blacksmith mechanical there on the corner. But later on it was a Datsun Nissan dealership. It had lots of car yard iterations along the way on that corner, and the old police station was directly behind it, which ended up being part of the courthouse. I bought my first Monaro when I was a kid from the Datsun dealer there when I was about 21 or 22 years old. Vergonia Motors on the corner across the road from Chirnside Park. Now Nando's is on the corner. This was the old State Bank, which is now Di Natale next to Bendigo Bank. Station Street long before me, so looking there, in my days, Knight's News Agency would have been along there, and you've got the station directly across, the entrance to the station directly across. Moving down, we've got the old Mechanics Institute, which was behind Centenary Hall, which is now the Cultural Centre. But the Centenary Hall is an interesting one in my little history, because when I was born in the Old Werribee Hospital in Sinnott Street, The day they were putting down the foundations for Centenary Hall was the day my mum had to come home from hospital, and my dad couldn't pick my mum and I up from the hospital when I was born because they were laying the foundations down. My dad worked for Rushford and Walsh, and so my Uncle Graham came and picked up mum and I as I was obviously a newborn. I don't remember it, but the story was always told about laying the foundations, and it was very important for what he was doing. So yes, that's pretty cool. I was just talking to Lisa, and very interesting. This is the old counter out of Cullinan's Chemist, which is virtually next door. And when I was a child, that was our chemist we would go to. And they're the old brown paper wrapping stand, dispenser. And interesting, this scales here, which is a baby scales, it's quite possible that I was in that as a baby when they were doing all that child stuff and weighing everybody up. So as you can see, there's a lot here to see. And these guys need our support as a community, and it'd be really good if everybody puts a few bucks on the GoFundMe. I gave a little bit today because I think it's important. But lots of really good stuff here that we should respect and look after and preserve. We were just talking about the Wyndham General Store, and that's going to need a new home because it can't go to the new place. So if anyone wants something like that, a theatre group or whatever, that will be available. It can be pulled down. And just for a little bit of back history, it's actually the identical replica of the Banner office, the old Banner office in Stacey Street. So the Wyndham General Store. So fortunately, because we have to move the museum, that will have to go as well. I've had an absolute ball checking out this place. I'm looking forward to seeing where this leads to in the new location. And I'll show you that in a few minutes, the new location. But I'm really excited for these guys because they've put in such a good effort in keeping this place running for so many years. And the way it's preserved our history, it's really, really cool. So I'm looking forward to the new location. So this is Trev. I'm finished up here now at the Society. This will be my last visit here. And we say goodbye to the old Shire office and hello to the new premises. It's really exciting to see that the Werribee Historical Society's new home is going to be in a historic building. Now, this building here was built in 1888 and has immense history here in Werribee. I can see Holiday Inn just in the distance here. So it is really central Werribee, about 200 metres from the old site at the old Shire office. It's much, much bigger. And I know the Historical Society guys are really excited because they have so much of our beautiful history in storage, and now they'll actually be able to display and theme the museum to its full glory. So yeah, look, very, very exciting, and I'm happy for the guys. Congratulations to Lisa and her team. This is going to be brilliant. Well done.